for inviting me, and together with this amazing panel. And I've learnt so much, and I'm connecting so much with all of the other panelists, particularly in my journey of purpose, and certainly the themes of love and art and writing, and aging is a growth of an opportunity for growth. I'd love that, Pat. But I would like to share with you a vignette of my what's given me purpose in life, and you can see in the background here is a beautiful photo that my daughter took from Zakynthos. So we do love to visit Greece and Greek islands, and my husband's father was from Zakynthos, so it's a place we love. But it's that connection back to home country. My parents, I'm Australian born, Greek. It has been a very important part of my life. But it began as I was growing up, and my father, my late father, he said he had two girls in the family. The most important thing is education. You have to be independent in life and get an education that gives you the ticket or the key. And I always remember that. And my mother, a very non-typical Greek family. She was a party girl, and she said, live life, Glendi, go out, have fun, and now, while you're young, do that. And till the day she passed, which was only 12 months ago, and that was very, very, very painful. Brad, I connected with your comments about purpose because of losing mum, and so I just remember, mum, whatever you do, you have to have fun. And Andrew, you also talked about fun, so that was fantastic. So I was driven into education by the need to be educated. So I went to university, and my purpose was about discovery, and I became a dietitian and a scientist, and then met a professor who I was inspired from, and Professor Catherine Itsiopoulos, and her area is Indigenous nutrition. I've come back to that in my career, interestingly. But she was fascinated by the Greek migrants and longevity. So there I was. I worked with Karen, did my PhD, and then I thought my purpose is to be a professor of dietetics and continue this discovery and find out what is it about the Mediterranean diet that leads to longevity. And I started with the Greek migrants, and I've learned so much about the Greek migrants here in Australia. And purpose is connecting back, with family. The religion is important. Growing your own food is important. We've got elderly Greek migrants now in their 80s, some in their 90s, that have still got this elaborate garden of fruits and vegetables, which they believe keeps them young. In all my research, I published papers, and I studied all diseases, lots of trials, and met many researchers, and that's been fantastic. But the crux, I guess, of the purpose was when I published my books. And Kay, you mentioned the Heart Health Guide, which is my latest, but the first ones were the Mediterranean diet. And the very first one was the recipes that I grew up with at my mother, who was a party girl, I mentioned, and also loved cooking, a very fastidious cook. Everything had to, the taste was the key for her. So her recipes are in that book, and I used them in my first trial in diabetes. And so with the book, I was on TV and cooking on the morning show, and my daughter said, "Wow, Mum's on TV," and that was like I made it. 20 years of research, publishing papers, and it was that moment of being on TV and publishing this book that gave me purpose in my family and amongst friends and my daughters. And at that point, I felt, well, that makes me a role model for my girls, because the career I've had has kept me busy, and been so lucky having a very supportive husband who's been, he's got his daddy's girls now. The girls have had Sav ever since they're young, because I've had to travel to conferences and write papers and do all this work. But I felt that somewhat I'm a role model, because, I've been able to have this career while being a mother, while being a wife. And my research continues, and it's still, I always say I'll never retire. I'm always going to be researching. But the epiphany around purpose for me was when I went to Ikaria, the island of the long living. It's one of the blue zones, and I've been there twice. And that's where I first started my more ethnographic anthropological work. And I did in-depth interviews with very old people in their 90s, and one woman, 107. She's still alive. She's 111 now. And they talked about, and I went there as a nutritionist. Of course, it's the Mediterranean diet that keeps you living long. Of course, it's the physical activity. This island is very mountainous, and they walk everywhere. But that came down the list when I asked them what gave them what led to longevity for them. It was right down the bottom. The food was important, exercise is important, social connectivity, the festivals, and the final thing was you have to be useful in society. You have to have purpose. Chrisimos στην κοινωνία was something that they said, that term in Greek. So I use that in my everyday life now, and so that has given me purpose. My experience and those words from the Icarians I'm now using in my work and in my career. So thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today about my journey and my purpose.
Catherine, I just loved everything you said, and I'm just going to give a heads up. I think maybe this time next year you're going to kind of pull together some events in Greece. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, and that was another exciting thing which has just happened, and we've connected across the world Mediterranean researchers with a concept called the Mediterranean Lifestyle and an institute, and it will be based in Leros, an island in Greece. And the plan is that we have a summer school and talk about the Mediterranean way of life. So it will include the arts and music and history and classics, and of course nutrition, but physical activity, and all of those elements. And one thing that almost like philosophers, I guess, a colleague said, one thing I really like about the Mediterranean is that everything in moderation. Famous quote. Oscar Wilde used it, but a poet did also, a Greek poet, 700 BC, Hesiod. Everything in moderation. So don't stress. Just calm down. Everything will be okay. So it will have a focus around that. And I'm fascinated. I'm very much looking forward to it. And we're thinking around June next year.
Well,